Hi everyone, Nigel Saunders here. Today we're back here in the plant room to do some updates and a lot of bonsai work. It's been very busy the last 2 weeks working on the new greenhouse, taking it all apart. But today it's rainy outside and I'm going to take a day off and work on my trees. I'll start this video with an update here in the bonsai zone. My first update for today is my Ficus microcarpa that I started from a seed almost 26 years ago. I've just had an aerial root drop from one of the branches and it's touched the soil. Coming from the back branch here, there's this aerial root that's slowly been dropping down and it's touched the soil, so that'll root fine. Kind of exciting. I've had a few others do this in the past. There's one coming from the trunk here that's dropped down into the soil. At first when they touch the soil they kind of grow loose and crooked, but as they touch the soil they tighten up and become very taut, almost like the string on a violin. I've got some other roots growing along the trunk. They kind of grow gripping the trunk. I miss the tree to keep the trunk fairly wet at all times. And they grow down and they just follow the contours of the trunk and eventually grow into the soil also. There are several examples of these roots, not just these two. There's one growing down here and you can see the tip of it has gone behind this root and it's emerging out here, and that'll grow down the trunk. There's a whole bunch at the base here that are growing really tightly to the trunk. These are the really good roots you want. You can't duplicate these any other way. They just have to grow naturally along the trunk and they'll eventually fuse with the trunk and create a really interesting trunk full of textures and flow lines, and just a really interesting trunk on a ficus, and a very natural looking one also. Here's a close-up of all these wild roots that are developing. I can remember when this was just a aerial root that was growing across the surface of the soil. It's getting quite thick now and it kind of wanders very naturally across the surface of the soil. It's really nice seeing the surface roots of this tree develop. 5 years ago I cut off almost all the roots, so this is all kind of regrown from scratch. I found as I develop my bonsai trees, every now and then I've got to make some major adjustments to them. Maybe a branch gets too thick and heavy and needs to be removed. And in this case, it involved pruning the roots. I pruned off almost all the old roots. They were getting thick and heavy and out of proportion with the rest of the tree. It was 5 years ago that I severely root pruned this tree, removing all those bulbous, fat roots, and now I've replaced them with finer, more delicate roots that are in more scale with the tree and makes the tree look more miniature. I'll have to keep my eye on these roots because they will develop into a larger root, so I may have to remove some and be constantly replacing them with finer roots as the tree develops in the future. When I first started this bonsai tree, it was a tall, skinny seedling and didn't look in proportion at all. But over the years, the trunk has thickened up. It doesn't look so tall anymore, and I think in future, as the trunk fattens up even more, it won't look like a tall tree at all. It'll look like a short, compact tree. One of the challenges of growing bonsai is that the tree is never static. It's always growing and changing. Trunks get thicker, branches get thicker. So you've always got to be evaluating the styling, making adjustments if necessary, and kind of evolving the design with your tree. I'll give the tree a misting, and then we'll start on today's first tree. The next tree I'll be working on is a cutting of a cutting from this very tree. My ficus cutting of a cutting was in the greenhouse for the summer, and you can see it grew a lot of aerial roots all over the bench top. So today I'll be trimming that back and also pruning back the tree. I still have my plumeria cutting on the bench here. You can see the leaves are getting a little limp, but the bottom is dried off where I cut it off. So I think I'll probably let it dry to the point where these leaves all fall off, and then I'll plant it in some soil. and keep it fairly dry for the winter. I'll begin the work on my ficus cutting of a cutting by removing all these roots that have grown across the bench. You can see a fairly thick one is wrapped underneath the pot here. So we'll be cutting those back. I'll leave them long for now in case I want to plant any into the soil. But most of them will go. This is in a 3D printed pot. So I'm going to make some major decisions today. I've got a lot of these aerial roots growing. Some of them I'll want to keep, and others, like this back one, I think I'll want to remove. It's, if you look at it, it's not growing in a nice radial pattern from the trunk. It kind of comes out from the trunk and swoops around in a curve at a funny angle. So I think that one will have to be removed. So there's that root. It's growing at a funny angle, if you can see it. And it's a little high in the root base, and it's way too thick. It's just getting out of proportion. Doesn't look good at all. So off it goes. So I'll come in with my curved branch pruners and try and prune it quite flush. So here I go. Done. That's a good cut. There's a close-up view of the cut. You can see it's slightly concave. And this root has rooted into the soil here, so I'm going to have to cut that away also. I'll come in with my stainless steel surgical scissors and just prune that away. You don't want to be using your really good pruners when you're pruning roots and they have soil around them. It'll dull them so quickly. There we go, that root is all cleaned up now. I'm back to the front of the tree now. So there's this large root that's not in the soil. So I have to decide if I'm going to keep that or not. I think I will. I'll probably try and tuck it in under another root and get it to root into the soil. Some of these, like this one, it has rooted into the soil, so that's okay. I can just cut off the excess roots around that area. The one over here, it has also rooted in the soil at one point, so I can remove part of that. So here I go. I'll remove it here and here. I'll remove this one just around the soil line or around the lip of the pot here. Like that. This one I'll prune off shorter and try and get it to root better into the soil. And this one I'll have to prune off quite short, maybe to here. And we'll try and get that to go into the ground. If I maybe dig a hole and stick it in the ground there, it should root. So I'll clean away these roots here that I've cut away, compost those, and then I'll try and tuck this root into the soil here. So I'll dig a little hole for it, just like that, and then I'll bend the root and get it into the ground, like that. So that's now contacting the soil, and it'll grow roots into the ground there, and it's coming a nice direction. No problems with that one. My ficus cutting of a cutting is growing quite tall and needs pruning to get it back to size. Pruning it back, I'll also get a lot of new branching growing around the cut points and on the old wood. So it'll make a more compact tree with more ramification in the branches, and it'll look more miniature. I'll start by pruning back my really tall branches using directional pruning. So I want to prune it just above a leaf that faces the direction that I want the branch to grow. And I'm always trying to train my branches to grow outwards from the main tree, so fanning out from the center of the tree. So I'll prune this one off right here. And this one right here. Actually, I'm going to go a little higher, right here. I can always prune it back more compact later on as I step back and look at it. To here. I remove an old leaf here. I always remove the leaves at the base of the branches. They were the ones that I had previously pruned the trunk back to. Prune this one back to here. And back to here. So at the moment I'm pruning, leaving leaves on all the branches. And I may go in later on and do a little harder pruning on them. Okay, that's a rough pruning now. I will step back and have a look at the design of the tree. I've had a look at the styling of the tree, and I've noticed that there's one thick branch growing from the apex here that's getting quite thick, thicker than all the rest of the branches. So I don't want one dominant branch to become like the leader. I want to grow all these multi-trunks equally in vigor. So I've got to prune that one back quite hard or remove it entirely. So I'm just looking. There is another branch just above it here that has the same function but is very skinny and weak. So I can prune off this thick branch and replace it with this small skinny one. So that's what I'll do. This is the thick branch here. This one here that I'm going to remove. And here is the skinny little one that will replace it. So I'll come in here and I'll make a nice flush cut removing this larger branch. So here I go. Didn't quite get in there. There we go. I can also remove this stub here from a previous pruning right here. Like that. Clean that cut up a bit. I didn't make the greatest cut here. I'm going to clean that up also. Trying to stay out of the light here, but I'm not doing a very good job. There we go. That's a better cut. There's a few older yellow leaves in here I'm going to remove. I'll just cut those off. This will get a little more light into the interior of the tree so I can get some new branching started. The tree should back bud and we'll get some more branch choices for the future. There, so all the yellowy leaves are removed. Everything's looking green and healthy. Let me step back and have another look at the tree. I've stood back and had a good look at the design of this tree, and my feeling is it's too tall still. These branches are too whippy, they're too skinny. I think I need to prune the entire structure down, make it more compact, and then, a hard pruning so I get a lot of new branches and fine branches forming to make a denser canopy. So I'm going to do a hedge style pruning to it, just clipping all this twiggy growth, more compact, and then we'll see how it develops. For my profile pruning, I'll use my long blue scissors and just prune a nice canopy to the tree and make it more compact. So here I go. Just cutting through leaves and everything. This hard pruning, as I said, stimulates a lot of back budding in the tree. And it gets the shape just how you want it for future development. I'm going to have a look at that now. So that was a good start, but I need to go even lower. So here I go again. Just pruning an umbrella-shaped canopy to it. I'll have a look at that now. I think that looks a good height now. I've got it, pruned to a nice canopy. It's low. As this tree develops in the future, I'll be defoliating it and selecting my branches more carefully than just a profile pruning. But this is just one tool to get it roughly shaped as the tree's developing. The work is complete on my ficus cutting of a cutting. Time to put it back on the bench and let it grow again. I've been really happy with the new LED lighting that I installed on the window side of the plant room. All the trees on the top row have been growing really well with the new lights. The only problem is that this area here underneath this bench is kind of dark. So I've saved up my money again and I bought an LED light that I can hang underneath this bench to shine down on all these trees on the lower level. The trees on the upper level are growing really well. You can see all the new shoots coming out on them. The Portulacaria afra is doing really well. The Schefflera is in full leaf now. Looking good. Ficus is doing well. It's actually growing. Usually in the wintertime it doesn't. My crown of thorns that I cut back severely is starting to sprout new shoots coming out. I don't know if you can see them in there. I'll zoom in. I've got new growth coming from the branches, from the trunk, down lower. It's back budding down to the lower part of the trunk, which could be interesting. This branch is a new bud coming out here. So it looks like it's going to survive this severe cutback. I'm hoping I get new branches on all these other branches and it gets a nice dense crown on it, but we'll see what happens. Yeah, so all the plants on the upper level here are doing really well with these LED lights and the sunlight coming in from the windows. The plants on the lower level, they're doing okay, but not great. They definitely could use some more light. So that's why I'm going to mount the LED light up above on the bottom of this shelf. It'll help them out a lot, I think. The ones at the front here by the window are doing fine. It's just these ones back further in the bench. They're kind of just shaded. So we'll see. Hopefully that new LED light will really help them out. There's the trunk of the fusion ficus. Doing quite well. It's my gorilla down there. My yucca forest in there is doing quite well also. It's right against the window, so it has no problems getting light. It's growing really well after severely cutting it back. I can't really get in there right now, but trust me, it's growing really well. You can see kind of it in there. My lemon tree, it's growing really well too. I don't know if you can see it back there. That's my lemon tree. It's got new shoots coming out all over the branches. It's got a new shoot where I severely cut that thick branch back. It's got a new shoot coming out. So yeah, it's looking really good, the lemon tree. Doing really well. I've got my new LED light here, so I'll get it out and get it mounted underneath this bench. All is out now. There's my cord and my chains for hanging it. All right. I've got to pick a place to hang it. It's a fairly long light, but it doesn't cover the entire bench area. So, I don't know. I'll probably just put it in the center here, and then the trees at the end will get a little bit of light. Enough to, make them grow well. So yeah, I'll hang it, I think, about here. The LED light comes with all the hardware you need to mount it. It's got chains and hooks to screw up into the wood. I'm going to put my first hook in right here, and they just go right into the wood without any pre-drilling. They're a self-tapping screw, and it's a nice long thread so it won't let go. So I'll just screw that in all the way. My next hook is going in way down here. I measured out the length of the light and made it an equal distance in from the edge. I'm all set to hang my light now. I'll just put the little hooks on the light and my chains and hang it up. I've got the light hanging by 2 of the hooks now, so I've got to add the other chains on the back to bring it up level. So I'll get my little S-shaped hooks and my chain and add the back one now. I finished hanging up the new LED light. The next step is to plug it in and see if it works. So here I go. There we go. That's much better for the lower plants. It's a really cloudy day outside today, so there's not much natural light coming in from the windows. So it's nice to have these LED lights to keep the trees growing strongly throughout the winter. My fusion ficus, or my franken-ficus as some people call it, is growing really well, and it's too tall to fit under the new LED light. I was going to leave it grow all winter and then hard prune it in spring and then get all kinds of back budding and try and get that canopy shape better. But I think it'll grow well under these LED lights. My other Ficus benjamina is growing really well under the LED lights up above. So I'm going to prune it back now so I can fit it underneath. My fusion ficus looks really healthy. Usually when I bring them in from outside, they start to drop a lot of leaves and, they have a hard time getting through the winter with the lower light levels. I think this year, because I have the LED lights, it's a lot brighter in the plant room, and the ficus has been doing much better. This ficus tree has a horrible branch structure. I've got all these thick vertical trunks growing straight up with no movement to them and no character. So I'm definitely going to have to prune them back, and I don't want to do it all at once. I want to do it in stages, because we'll be developing these side branches and maybe this one as the new trunk line. So this will all get cut off eventually. But if I don't want to do it all at once or it'll just weaken the tree, I want to keep enough leaves on the tree to generate energy and keep the tree growing in a nice healthy manner.